which was over 70 years ago, so a long, long time ago, the world looked very different from the way it looks today. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party ruled Germany, and they set out about taking over the whole of Europe. It was a really dangerous time for anyone the Nazis hated, and many people fled as the Nazis conquered country after country.
In 1938, an Englishman called Nicholas Winton visited Prague, which is the capital of Czechoslovakia, and he immediately realised the danger faced by Jewish families.
We've got to get the children to safety.
He worked tirelessly making arrangements for Jewish children to be looked after by British families. In all, he rescued 669 children who came to England on special trains called Kinder Transport.
Now, Kinder means children in the German language, so really the trains were called children transport. But can you imagine how these children must have felt? Some were excited. It was a new adventure travelling to another country. Many were frightened because they had to leave their homes and everything they'd ever known. But they all thought they'd see their families again after a little while. You can hear them saying, "Bye, Mum, love you."
Travelled for over 24 hours through Czechoslovakia, Germany, Holland, and across the English Channel to England, finally arriving in London Liverpool Street Station.
They carried a small suitcase with their clothes, and sometimes a favourite teddy bear or a doll. Each child was given a number which was tied to them.
Now, they didn't know anything about this country, and they couldn't even speak any English. They had to trust that people that they had never ever met before would care for them and look after them. Now, these stories that you're about to hear are the true, real-life stories from children who were rescued.
My name is Jack. I was very unhappy.
Jack was very unhappy in his home country because he'd been badly beaten up and injured when he was thrown through a shop window. Can you imagine how awful that must have been? But when he and the other Jewish boys arrived in their new home in England, they found a ball, and as boys do, they started playing football. Then some of the boys from the nearby village saw them and joined in the game. At the end of the game, the village boys said to them, "See you tomorrow."
I was so happy and excited.
Jack was overjoyed. For the first time in his life, other boys who weren't Jewish wanted to play with him.
My name is Lorraine and all my friends deserted me.
The first time that Lorraine realised she was being treated differently in her home country was on her 10th birthday. Do you know why? Because nobody went to her birthday party. But in all the time that she was in England, nobody ever said to Lorraine, "You weren't born in this country," or "You don't belong here."
Everyone has been welcoming and friendly.
Lorraine felt completely accepted here, so after the war she made her home here in England.
My name is Kurt. I didn't know what to expect in England.
Kurt was looked after by Mr. and Mrs. Cohen, who wanted him to be a playmate for their son John, who was 5 years old. Kurt's parents survived, and after the war, Mr. and Mrs. Cohen took him to Paris to be reunited with his mum and dad. When it was time to say goodbye, Kurt noticed that all of the Cohens were in tears.
Then I knew they really loved me.
Kurt realised he'd become part of the Cohens family, just like their son John.
Stars.
My name is Vera. I felt frightened.
At Liverpool Street Station, all of the children from Czechoslovakia had been met by their new foster parents, all except Vera. She sat on her own feeling very lonely and afraid. Then the person who was going to look after her, called Mrs. Rainford, came rushing up, and seeing how unhappy she looked, she threw her arms around her and said,
"You shall be loved."
They got on the next train to Liverpool, and Vera said the only words of English that she knew.
I have hunger.
Mrs. Rainford shot out of her seat and out of the train carriage. Vera felt all alone again. She was very worried when the train whistle blew. And then the train started to pull out of the station without Mrs. Rainford. Then she appeared just in time and clambered into the carriage of the moving train, holding a lovely English ice cream.
It was the best ice cream I've ever tasted.
Vera and Mrs. Rainford went on to become lifelong friends.
Love is shown by what we do, and Sir Nicholas Winton did all he could to save these children. He's actually still alive, and he's 105 years old now, which is pretty old, I think you'll all agree. But he was named as a British hero of the Holocaust. And we can all be very, very proud that Britain was the only country in the world that took in children on the Kindertransport. There were over 10,000 of them in all, and we saved them from Nazi persecution. At Liverpool Street Station, there's a statue commemorating the children that came over on the Kindertransport. And you can ask your parents to show you the statue when you next visit Liverpool Street Station in London.